In this chapter, we come to a summary and reflection of all that has been shared throughout this journey, and it serves as both a conclusion and a guiding map for the path ahead, for the book titled Stay Calm, Think Smart. The art of critical thinking in difficult situations has been about equipping the mind, steadying the heart, and shaping the character to handle challenges with wisdom, clarity, and composure. And as you listen, imagine this not just as words being spoken, but as a living reminder that critical thinking is not a theory for scholars, only CHTR1 in life. Challenges are inevitable, and yet the way we respond to them defines the trajectory of our journey. For every difficult situation is not merely an external event, but a reflection of how well we have trained our minds to remain steady under pressure. And this chapter begins with a fundamental principle: staying calm is the foundation upon which smart thinking is built, because when chaos surrounds us, when voices rise and events spiral beyond our control, the human mind is prone to panic, fear, and reactive impulses, and without deliberate effort, we find ourselves swept away by emotions, reacting impulsively, making decisions that are later regretted, and compounding the very difficulties we seek to overcome. Yet calmness is not a passive state of waiting or suppression of feeling. It is an active discipline, a deliberate choice to center oneself, to breathe, to slow the racing heart, and to create a mental space in which clarity can emerge. And the practice of calmness begins with awareness, noticing the subtle signs of tension in the body, the racing thoughts in the mind, the urge to react before fully understanding the situation. For most people respond habitually, automatically, without observation or reflection, and it is precisely this automaticity that leads to poor judgment, miscommunication, and unnecessary conflict. Yet by cultivating awareness, we take the first step toward mastery of the self, understanding that the mind is like a mirror, reflecting the state of our inner calm or turmoil onto the external world. And when we learn to stabilize that inner reflection, the world itself does not change, but our perception of it does. And with perception grounded in calmness, we can begin to approach problems with reason rather than panic, with discernment rather than impulse, and with a sense of strategic purpose rather than mere reaction. And this is the essence of critical thinking in difficult situations, for it is not the absence of challenges that defines intelligent action, but the ability to navigate them thoughtfully, deliberately, and with composure. And the path to calmness is both practical and psychological, involving simple yet profound habits such as controlled breathing, pausing before responding, observing one's own emotions without judgment, and reminding oneself that most situations are transient, that the intensity of a moment does not dictate its permanence, and that the power to choose one's response is always within reach, even when circumstances feel overwhelming. And this awareness transforms the mind, turning reflexive reactivity into conscious action. And as we continue through this chapter, we explore the concept that calmness is not merely an internal state, but a tool of effectiveness. For a calm mind can perceive options that a stressed mind misses, can evaluate consequences that a hurried mind ignores, and can communicate solutions that a frantic mind obscures. And in practical terms, staying calm allows us to listen more attentively, to gather information more accurately, to notice subtleties in body language and tone, to weigh evidence carefully, and to avoid cognitive shortcuts that often lead to error. And this deliberate approach to thinking is not reserved for crises alone. It is a skill cultivated through repeated practice in everyday life, from small inconveniences to larger conflicts, building resilience, patience, and self-mastery that compound over time, creating a mental architecture capable of handling greater challenges with grace. For the mind that has learned calm in minor trials finds strength in major ones. And this is where thinking smart emerges, for smart thinking is inseparable from calmness, as reasoning requires space, perspective, and emotional balance, and without calm, even the most intelligent person may make flawed decisions, overlooking critical details, misjudging motives, and acting on fear rather than insight. And in difficult situations, the integration of calmness and critical thinking becomes a form of armor, not to shield one from reality, but to equip one to interact with it wisely. And the disciplined practice of this principle transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. As individuals who master calmness under pressure consistently make decisions that are thoughtful, ethical, and effective, and influence others through steadiness, clarity, and rationality, creating an environment where solutions are possible, conflicts are mitigated, and problems are addressed methodically, and by embedding these habits into daily life. Through meditation, reflective pauses, mindful observation, controlled breathing, and conscious choice making, we reinforce the neural pathways that support calm, deliberate thinking, so that when genuine crises arrive, these patterns are already established, allowing the mind to function optimally even under pressure. And ultimately, Chapter 1 serves as both a starting point and a foundation, reminding us that every journey toward critical thinking begins with mastering the self, cultivating calmness, and understanding that emotional composure is not weakness but strength, not inaction but preparation, and that in this steady state, the mind gains the clarity, focus, and insight required to approach problems wisely, act decisively, and navigate the complexities of life. Implies competence and an unshakable sense of purpose, and in embracing this principle, we lay the groundwork for all that follows in the chapters ahead. For calmness is the soil in which the seeds of smart thinking grow, flourish, and bear fruit, allowing us to face the world not as victims of circumstance, but as deliberate, thoughtful, and empowered agents of our own decisions. Chapter 2, critical thinking is not simply a matter of acquiring knowledge or memorizing facts. It is a disciplined approach to perceiving the world, interpreting information, and making decisions with clarity, accuracy, and insight. And in this chapter, we delve deeply into the nature of thinking smart by examining the mental habits and processes that shape our judgment. For every human mind carries inherent biases, assumptions, and tendencies that color perception, influence decision-making, and often lead to error without conscious awareness. And the first step in developing critical thinking is recognizing these mental filters. For only by acknowledging the lens through which we see the world can we begin to correct distortions, question assumptions, and evaluate information objectively. And it is not enough to accept the first thought that arises or the first explanation presented, because difficult situations rarely present themselves with clarity or simplicity, and often what appears to be obvious at first glance is clouded by emotion, incomplete information, or misleading patterns. Yet by cultivating awareness of our own cognitive processes, we gain the ability to step back, observe, and analyze, creating a mental space where reason can operate unhindered by reflexive reactions. And in practical terms, critical thinking requires patience, curiosity, and the willingness to question deeply, to explore the roots of a problem, and to examine alternative explanations without prejudice. And in doing so, we build a mental framework that can navigate complexity, uncertainty, and conflicting perspectives. For every difficult situation carries multiple angles, hidden variables, and subtle consequences, and a mind trained to think critically does not settle for surface-level understanding but probes beneath appearances, asking what is missing, what is assumed, and what evidence supports each claim. And this skill is essential because in real life, information is rarely complete, and decisions often carry consequences that are not immediately visible. And the ability to think smart depends not only on evaluating the information itself, but also on understanding the source, context, and potential biases that influence what is presented. And by developing habits of inquiry, observation, and reflection, we strengthen the capacity to distinguish fact from opinion, reality from perception, and probability from certainty, thereby increasing the accuracy and reliability of our decisions. And another critical element in this process is the recognition that emotional states influence reasoning, that anxiety, stress, anger, or excitement can distort perception, amplify risks, and generate cognitive shortcuts that lead to error. And by integrating emotional awareness into our thinking, we allow ourselves to pause, assess, and regulate our responses, transforming reactive judgment into deliberate analysis. And the combination of self-awareness, patience, and careful evaluation creates the conditions in which critical thinking can flourish, enabling us to approach challenges methodically, prioritize what matters most, and anticipate the consequences of our actions with greater precision. And furthermore, thinking smart requires flexibility, for rigid adherence to preconceived notions limits the mind's capacity to adapt to new information. And the smartest thinkers are those who remain open to revision, who recognize that conclusions are provisional, and who actively seek disconfirming evidence to test assumptions. And in doing so, they cultivate intellectual humility, the understanding that knowledge is never absolute, and that growth comes from constant questioning, learning, and adaptation. And this humility does not weaken decision-making, rather, it strengthens it by preventing overconfidence, promoting thoroughness, and encouraging ongoing reflection. And in the context of difficult situations, this approach becomes invaluable, for the ability to adjust one's understanding, reevaluate options, and shift strategies can mean the difference between success and failure, clarity and confusion, progress and stagnation. And critical thinking also involves the deliberate practice of analysis, prioritization, and synthesis, connecting disparate pieces of information into coherent understanding, identifying patterns where others see randomness, and constructing frameworks that allow for informed, strategic action. And the disciplined thinker considers short-term outcomes alongside long-term implications, personal interests alongside collective impact, and immediate pressures alongside ultimate goals, balancing multiple dimensions of complexity in a coherent, structured manner. And this skill is not innate but cultivated through repetition, reflection, and conscious effort, requiring engagement with real-life problems, and critical questioning of assumptions, and continuous evaluation of results. And as this chapter unfolds, it becomes clear that critical thinking is both a mindset and a method, a combination of analytical strategies that empower the individual to navigate uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity with clarity, confidence, and composure. And the mind trained in this way transforms challenges into opportunities for insight, problems into exercises in judgment, and uncertainty into space for creative solutions. And ultimately, Chapter 2 reminds us that thinking smart begins with self-awareness, continues through disciplined questioning, and flourishes in the integration of reason, reflection, and adaptability, equipping us to approach life's difficulties not as victims of circumstance, but as capable, deliberate, and thoughtful agents of our own decisions, capable of turning confusion into understanding, pressure into clarity, and complexity into actionable insight. And the principles outlined in this chapter lay the foundation for all subsequent practices of critical thinking, teaching us that knowledge alone is insufficient, that intelligence untempered by discipline is unreliable, and that the greatest advantage in any difficult situation is the combination of calmness and structured, evidence-based reasoning, a combination that transforms ordinary minds into extraordinary problem solvers and ordinary decisions into deliberate, impactful action. See Chapter 3. Emotions are powerful forces that shape human experience, and this chapter focuses on the critical relationship between emotional awareness and effective thinking. For in difficult situations, emotions can either be allies that guide insight or obstacles that cloud judgment, and understanding how to recognize, regulate, and utilize emotions is central to mastering critical thinking, because when stress, fear, anger, or frustration surge, the mind is prone to distortion, perception is narrowed, and decisions are often reactive rather than deliberate. Yet emotions themselves are not inherently negative, and the disciplined thinker learns to treat them as signals rather than directives, acknowledging their presence, understanding their source, and choosing responses consciously. And the first step in this process is awareness, noticing the subtle physical and mental cues that indicate rising tension, racing thoughts, or impulsive urges. For without recognition, emotion becomes automatic, driving decisions in ways that often contradict logic, values, or long-term goals. And once awareness is established, the next step is regulation, which involves techniques such as controlled breathing, mindful observation, pausing before acting, and reframing thoughts in ways that reduce emotional intensity while preserving insight. And regulation is not suppression or denial, which can backfire and lead to greater stress or eventual outburst, but rather an active shaping of response, allowing the mind to maintain composure while processing complex information. And in practical terms, emotional control enables the thinker to remain present, to evaluate situations objectively, and to choose actions that are aligned with both reason and principle, rather than being hijacked by temporary impulses. And this becomes particularly important in high-stakes or ambiguous situations, where the pressure to react quickly can override rational analysis. Yet a mind trained to regulate emotion can pause long enough to gather facts, weigh consequences, and make deliberate choices. And beyond regulation, the next dimension is integration, learning how to leverage emotions constructively. For feelings of empathy, concern, or even fear can provide valuable information, highlighting risks, signaling priorities, and motivating proactive behavior. And the key is to allow emotion to inform thought without controlling it, so that it enhances discernment rather than undermining clarity. And the disciplined thinker understands that emotions are data, not directives, cues, not commands, and by interpreting them judiciously, one gains insight into both oneself and others, improving communication, problem-solving, and relationship management. And in this chapter, we also explore the concept of emotional resilience, the capacity to recover from stress, disappointment, or conflict without losing clarity or composure. And resilience is strengthened through consistent practice, reflection, and the development of coping strategies, so that even when intense feelings arise, the mind can return to a balanced state, maintaining focus and strategic perspective. And emotional resilience also supports ethical decision-making, for strong emotions can sometimes tempt impulsive, self-serving, or short-sighted choices. Yet a regulated, resilient mind evaluates the moral and practical implications before acting, ensuring that decisions are both effective and principled. And further, the chapter emphasizes the importance of empathy in critical thinking, the ability to understand and appreciate the emotional perspectives of others, which allows for more accurate interpretation of motives, better negotiation, and stronger collaboration. And empathy, when combined with rational analysis, creates a holistic understanding of situations where human factors are considered alongside data and logic. And this integrated approach enhances both the quality of decisions and the effectiveness of communication. And as we delve deeper, we see that emotional intelligence and critical thinking are inseparable in practice. For the mind that can think clearly without awareness of emotional influence is incomplete, and the mind that can regulate emotions without reasoning systematically is reactive. Yet when these faculties are combined, the individual gains the ability to navigate uncertainty, resolve conflicts, and act decisively under pressure, transforming what might otherwise be overwhelming challenges into opportunities for insight, strategic action, and growth. And the chapter further explores practical strategies for strengthening emotional control, such as reflective journaling, mindfulness exercises, scenario analysis, and rehearsal of responses to potential stressors. And these practices build habits that prepare the mind to function optimally in real-world difficulties, enhancing both cognitive performance and emotional stability, and ultimately Chapter 3 demonstrates that mastery of emotions is not about elimination or suppression, but about awareness, regulation, and integration, allowing feelings to guide rather than dictate, to inform rather than overwhelm, and to provide insight without compromising clarity. And by cultivating emotional intelligence alongside analytical reasoning, the thinker achieves a state of balance, composure, and effectiveness, capable of addressing complex situations with both wisdom and humanity, turning challenges into opportunities for learning, growth, and deliberate, thoughtful action. And in embracing these principles, we lay the groundwork for all subsequent chapters, understanding that true critical thinking in difficult situations is as much about managing the internal landscape of the mind and heart as it is about evaluating external circumstances, and that the calm, emotionally intelligent mind is uniquely equipped to navigate uncertainty, make informed decisions, and respond to life's pressures with clarity, precision, and unwavering composure, establishing the essential connection between emotion and reason that underpins every effective act of critical thinking. Chapter 4 observation is one of the most powerful yet often overlooked tools of critical thinking, and this chapter emphasizes the importance of sharpening one's awareness to perceive situations accurately. For the ability to observe carefully forms the foundation upon which all subsequent reasoning is built, because a misperception at the outset can cascade into flawed assumptions, poor decisions, and unintended consequences, and in difficult situations the mind is frequently distracted by noise, emotions, assumptions, or biases. Yet deliberate observation allows us to see what is truly present rather than what we fear, hope for, or assume, and this begins with slowing down, paying attention to the details that others may ignore, noticing patterns, inconsistencies, and subtle cues that reveal the underlying dynamics of a situation. And observation is not merely visual, it encompasses listening deeply to words and tone, noticing body language and behavior, perceiving timing and context, and recognizing the emotional undercurrents that influence people's decisions and actions. And a disciplined observer engages all senses in a conscious effort to gather accurate data, for critical thinking cannot thrive on incomplete or distorted information, and the quality of our judgments is directly proportional to the quality of our observations. And by practicing careful attention, we learn to separate relevant details from distractions, to identify what is significant rather than incidental, and to discern facts from interpretations. And this chapter further explores the concept that observation requires humility, for the world rarely conforms to expectations, and preconceived notions can blind us to reality. And the disciplined thinker approaches situations with curiosity and openness, asking, "What is actually happening?" rather than, "What do I expect or hope is happening?" And by suspending immediate judgment, we allow facts to reveal themselves without distortion, and observation also strengthens our ability to anticipate outcomes, for patterns often emerge from careful attention, allowing us to predict reactions, consequences, and the unfolding of events. And in high-pressure or complex scenarios, this predictive capacity provides a strategic advantage, enabling us to prepare, respond, and adapt intelligently rather than being caught off guard. And observation is intimately tied to patience, for many aspects of a situation are revealed only over time, and impulsive conclusions often overlook critical information. Yet a patient mind that observes without rushing builds a comprehensive understanding, integrating disparate elements into a coherent picture. And this holistic view allows for informed decision making, accurate problem analysis, and effective strategy development. And beyond individual perception, observation also facilitates interpersonal understanding, as careful attention to the behavior, speech, and emotions of others provides insight into motives, intentions, and potential reactions, enhancing empathy, communication, and conflict resolution. And the skilled observer recognizes that every interaction, every gesture, and every choice carries information, and by interpreting these signals accurately, one gains a depth of understanding that transcends surface-level appearances, and this capacity is particularly valuable in difficult situations where the stakes are high, emotions are heightened, and misinterpretation can lead to mistakes. Yet through disciplined observation, the mind gains clarity, discernment, and the ability to act strategically, and the chapter emphasizes that observation is a skill developed through consistent practice, through conscious attention to the present moment, reflection on past experiences, and learning to notice subtleties that previously went unnoticed. And the more we practice, the more naturally we perceive, analyze, and integrate information, building a foundation for higher order thinking, reasoning, and problem solving. And observation also interacts with other critical thinking skills, reinforcing listening, questioning, reflection, and emotional awareness, because seeing clearly is inseparable from understanding context, interpreting meaning, and connecting facts, patterns, and consequences, and this integration allows for a comprehensive approach to complex situations where multiple variables and perspectives must be considered simultaneously, and the disciplined observer not only collects information but evaluates its reliability, significance, and relevance, distinguishing between what matters and what is incidental, separating truth from noise, and integrating insights into coherent strategies. And ultimately, Chapter 4 reminds us that observation is both a skill and an attitude, a continuous commitment to pay attention, question assumptions, and engage deeply with reality, for the mind that observes thoroughly and accurately is equipped to think critically, make wise decisions, anticipate challenges, and respond effectively. And by cultivating this skill alongside calmness, emotional regulation, and analytical reasoning, we create the conditions for intelligent action, strategic problem solving, and meaningful outcomes in any difficult situation, understanding that perception is the gateway to understanding, and that clarity of thought begins with clarity of observation. And in embracing these principles, we lay the groundwork for all subsequent skills explored in the chapters that follow, ensuring that our thinking is rooted in reality and guided by awareness and capable of navigating the complexities of life with precision, composure, and insight, turning every challenge into an opportunity to apply reasoned, deliberate, and intelligent action. See Chapter 5. Listening is one of the most essential yet underestimated skills in critical thinking, and this chapter focuses on the profound impact of active, attentive listening in understanding situations, people, and challenges more clearly. For in difficult circumstances, information is often scattered, perspectives conflict, and assumptions cloud perception. And without careful listening, we risk making decisions based on incomplete, distorted, or misunderstood input. Yet effective listening is more than simply hearing words. It is a deliberate, conscious effort to comprehend meaning, context, intent, and emotion, and it requires patience, presence, and openness, because the human mind naturally tends to filter, interpret, or judge messages prematurely, often listening only to confirm existing beliefs or to prepare a response rather than truly understanding what is being communicated. And this habit can obscure critical details, create misunderstandings, and impair judgment. And the first step in developing listening as a critical thinking tool is mindfulness, bringing full attention to the speaker, the situation, and the nuances of expression, noticing tone, body language, pauses, and emphasis, because communication is rarely limited to words alone, and the disciplined listener interprets both verbal and nonverbal cues, recognizing inconsistencies, detecting unspoken concerns, and understanding the broader context. And by doing so, the thinker gains a more complete, accurate picture of the situation, enabling analysis, evaluation, and informed decision-making. And listening is also intertwined with empathy, for understanding the perspectives, emotions, and motivations of others requires putting aside one's own assumptions, biases, and judgments. And this empathetic approach allows the mind to receive information without distortion, to appreciate diverse viewpoints, and to anticipate reactions and consequences more effectively. And in difficult situations, where tension is high and stakes are significant, empathetic listening transforms conflict into dialogue, misunderstanding into clarity, and disagreement into collaboration. For the listener, who fully attends to another person's words, feelings, and perspective, builds trust, rapport, and mutual understanding, creating the conditions for rational, cooperative problem solving. And beyond interpersonal interactions, listening enhances self-awareness and internal reflection, because the mind that learns to attend carefully to external information also becomes more attuned to internal cues, thoughts, and emotions, allowing the thinker to notice patterns, detect biases, and evaluate reasoning with greater precision. And listening carefully also strengthens critical questioning, because attentive listening reveals gaps, contradictions, and underlying assumptions that might otherwise go unnoticed, and these insights can then be explored through deliberate, thoughtful inquiry, refining understanding and guiding decision-making. And effective listening also involves withholding immediate judgment or response, resisting the urge to interrupt, correct, or argue prematurely, because many errors in reasoning occur when individuals prioritize asserting their own perspective over truly understanding the input of others. And by suspending judgment, the thinker creates mental space for observation, analysis, and synthesis, allowing ideas to fully form before evaluation. And this deliberate practice enhances both comprehension and accuracy, ensuring that decisions are informed by complete, reliable, and nuanced information. And listening further reinforces patience and focus, because staying fully attentive requires resisting distraction, multitasking, and mental wandering. And the skills cultivated through attentive listening, concentration, mindfulness, and presence, are essential for all subsequent stages of critical thinking, including analysis, synthesis, evaluation, and action. And in practical terms, disciplined listening transforms challenges into opportunities, as the mind that truly hears is better able to identify causes, anticipate consequences, recognize solutions, and align actions with goals. And in interpersonal or professional contexts, attentive listening allows for effective negotiation, conflict resolution, and collaboration, because understanding the needs, priorities, and concerns of others allows strategic responses that are not only rational, but also relationally effective, fostering trust, cooperation, and mutual benefit. And ultimately, Chapter 5 reminds us that listening is not passive but active, not simple but complex, and that it is a skill that can be cultivated through mindfulness, reflection, practice, and intentional effort. And the disciplined listener integrates observation, empathy, emotional awareness, and analytical reasoning, creating a mind capable of navigating complexity, ambiguity, and pressure with clarity, composure, and strategic insight. And by mastering the art of listening, the thinker lays a foundation for deeper understanding, more accurate judgment, and more effective action, transforming every conversation, observation, and interaction into an opportunity for insight, growth, and intelligent response. And as we continue through the chapters ahead, the principles of listening will intertwine with questioning, reflection, perspective, and decision-making, demonstrating that the mind that listens fully is also a mind that thinks smart, acts deliberately, and responds with wisdom, clarity, and composure, navigating the challenges of life with both precision and empathy, ensuring that every choice, action, and response is grounded in understanding, reason, and thoughtful awareness. Chapter 6 Questioning is the engine of critical thinking, and this chapter delves into the art and science of asking the right questions, for in every difficult situation, the quality of one's questions directly determines the depth of understanding, the clarity of insight, and the effectiveness of decisions. And many people approach challenges with assumptions, accepting surface-level explanations or the first conclusion that comes to mind. Yet critical thinkers is rarely self-evident that complexity often hides beneath simplicity, and that careful, deliberate inquiry is essential to uncover hidden patterns, motives, and variables, and questioning begins with curiosity, the genuine desire to understand rather than to confirm pre-existing beliefs, and it requires humility, the recognition that one does not already have all the answers, and that learning comes from exploration rather than assertion, and the disciplined questioner distinguishes between different types of questions: open-ended, probing, reflective, and clarifying, selecting each with intention to uncover context, cause, consequence, and perspective. And in practical terms, questioning involves examining assumptions, testing claims, seeking evidence, and exploring alternatives, because in complex or high-stakes situations, unexamined assumptions can lead to misjudgment, miscommunication, and ineffective action. And every question asked is an opportunity to illuminate blind spots, challenge bias, and expand understanding. For a mind that does not question is a mind that operates on autopilot, relying on habit, intuition, or incomplete information, whereas a mind trained to inquire critically engages actively, evaluating both the information presented and the framework through which it is interpreted. And questioning also intersects with observation and listening, because careful attention to details, inconsistencies, and subtle cues informs the development of relevant and precise questions, and the act of asking encourages further observation, deeper listening, and heightened awareness, creating a cycle of inquiry that continuously enriches understanding and guides decision-making. And in addition, effective questioning requires emotional intelligence, for how questions are framed and delivered affects not only the quality of information received, but also the response of others. And disciplined thinkers learn to ask questions respectfully, neutrally, and thoughtfully, avoiding confrontational, leading, or biased phrasing, so that dialogue remains constructive, collaborative, and revealing. And in complex problem-solving, questioning is not about winning arguments or asserting superiority, but about gathering evidence, exploring possibilities, and testing the reliability of assumptions. And a critical thinker develops a mental habit of asking, "What am I missing? What evidence supports this? What could be an alternative explanation? And what are the potential consequences?" And by systematically interrogating situations in this way, the mind uncovers nuance, recognizes patterns, and generates solutions that are both rational and practical. And the chapter further at iterative questioning, revisiting problems, revising assumptions, and refining hypotheses, because understanding often deepens over time and through repeated inquiry. And the thinker who revisits and reevaluates is less likely to fall prey to errors, oversights, or rigid thinking. And in decision-making under uncertainty, questioning functions as both a compass and a safeguard, guiding analysis, ensuring thoroughness, and preventing hasty, unexamined action. And moreover, questioning develops metacognition, the awareness of one's own thinking processes, because by examining how we arrive at conclusions, why we hold certain beliefs, and where our reasoning may be vulnerable, we cultivate a reflective, self-correcting mindset, enhancing both accuracy and adaptability. And in interpersonal and professional contexts, questioning enables effective negotiation, problem-solving, and collaboration, because understanding the perspectives, motives, and constraints of others allows for informed, strategic, and mutually beneficial solutions. And this skill is particularly valuable in situations of conflict, ambiguity, or high stakes, where assumptions, emotions, and incomplete information can otherwise lead to error. And finally, the disciplined practice of questioning fosters intellectual resilience, curiosity, and continuous learning, transforming each challenge into an opportunity for insight, growth, and strategic thinking. And Chapter 6 reminds us that the mind that questions actively is a mind that perceives deeply, evaluates rigorously, and acts wisely, and that questioning is not a sign of doubt or weakness, but a hallmark of intelligence, discernment, and proactive engagement. And when integrated with calmness, observation, listening, empathy, and analytical reasoning, questioning becomes a powerful tool, equipping the thinker to navigate complexity, uncertainty, and difficulty with clarity, precision, and confidence, turning challenges into opportunities for thoughtful action, informed decisions, and meaningful results. And ultimately, this chapter illustrates that critical thinking is a practice of continuous inquiry, where each question asked opens a door to deeper understanding, better choices, and a more intelligent, effective, and deliberate approach to life's most demanding situations. Chapter 7: Perspective is a vital component of critical thinking, and this chapter explores the profound importance of stepping back from immediate circumstances to see situations in a broader, more nuanced context. For when faced with challenges, people often become trapped in their own limited viewpoint, focusing narrowly on the problem as it appears to them and neglecting alternative interpretations, underlying causes, or potential consequences. And this tunnel vision can lead to misjudgment, unnecessary stress, and ineffective solutions. Yet by deliberately cultivating the habit of examining situations from multiple angles, considering the perspectives of others, and reflecting on historical patterns, experiences, and potential outcomes, we open our minds to richer, more accurate understanding. And perspective is not merely a mental exercise, but an active strategy that allows the thinker to distinguish between what is urgent and what is important, to weigh immediate emotions against long-term goals, and to evaluate reactions, assumptions, and evidence with greater clarity. And the practice of perspective taking enhances empathy, insight, and strategic thinking, because understanding the motives, constraints, and intentions of others enables us to navigate interpersonal dynamics more effectively, anticipate conflicts, and craft solutions that are not only rational but also socially and emotionally intelligent. And in difficult situations, perspective prevents impulsive reactions driven by stress, fear, or frustration, allowing the mind to consider context, history, and potential ripple effects before acting. And this broader view also promotes humility, as it reminds us that our initial interpretation may be incomplete or biased, and that alternative viewpoints, new information, or unseen factors may significantly alter our understanding. And by embracing this humility, the thinker avoids overconfidence, evaluates evidence more thoroughly, and remains open to learning and adaptation. And perspective also strengthens problem-solving abilities, because the ability to step outside one's immediate experience allows for the identification of patterns, connections, and systemic factors that might otherwise be missed. And by recognizing the interdependencies and complexities of a situation, the mind can generate solutions that are not only practical but sustainable, resilient, and well-informed. And in this way, perspective is integrally linked with observation, questioning, and analysis, reinforcing other critical thinking skills and creating a comprehensive approach to understanding and decision-making. And further, perspective provides emotional benefits, as it helps individuals manage stress, regulate impulses, and maintain composure, by reminding them of the relative scale, temporality, and broader context of difficulties. For the ability to see beyond immediate discomfort, disappointment, or challenge fosters resilience, patience, and a sense of proportionality that prevents overreaction, burnout, or rash choices. And perspective also nurtures creativity and innovation, because the mind that considers multiple angles, scenarios, and alternatives is better able to generate novel solutions, explore unconventional approaches, and anticipate unintended consequences, allowing for flexibility and adaptability in both planning and execution. And the disciplined thinker actively seeks perspective through reflection, dialogue, observation, research, and mindfulness, cultivating habits that enable them to evaluate situations holistically, consider long-term implications, and integrate insights from diverse sources. For the quality of decision-making is directly proportional to the breadth and depth of perspective applied, and in professional, interpersonal, or life challenges, perspective-taking transforms conflict into collaboration, confusion into clarity, and complexity into actionable understanding, allowing the thinker to navigate ambiguity, competing interests, and uncertainty with poise, wisdom, and strategic judgment. And moreover, perspective reminds us that no situation exists in isolation, that every action has consequences, and that the ripple effects of decisions extend beyond immediate appearances. And by adopting this awareness, the critical thinker develops foresight, ethical judgment, and a sense of responsibility that informs every choice, enhancing both effectiveness and integrity. And as this chapter demonstrates, cultivating perspective is not a one-time act but a continuous practice, an ongoing commitment to step back, observe, reflect, and consider before acting, and the mind that consistently applies perspective is able to integrate knowledge, experience, emotion, and logic into a coherent understanding, producing decisions that are thoughtful, balanced, and impactful. And ultimately, Chapter 7 underscores that perspective is the lens through which clarity, insight, and understanding emerge, and that by embracing a broader view, combining self-awareness with empathy, reflection, and strategic evaluation, the thinker transforms challenges into opportunities, uncertainty into insight, and complexity into actionable intelligence, equipping themselves to navigate life's difficulties with composure, discernment, and the confident knowledge that they are seeing the situation as fully and clearly as possible before making deliberate, reasoned, and effective decisions. Decision-making is the culmination of all the skills we have discussed so far, and this chapter focuses on the art and science of making choices under pressure. For in difficult situations, the quality of decisions determines not only immediate outcomes but also long-term consequences, and many people struggle because they either act impulsively, paralyzed by indecision, or rely on intuition without systematically evaluating information. Yet effective decision-making is neither purely instinctive nor entirely analytical. It is the integration of calmness, observation, listening, questioning, perspective, and emotional regulation, combined with a deliberate process that transforms uncertainty into clarity and action. And the first step in effective decision-making is clarity of purpose, understanding exactly what one wants to achieve, why it matters, and what constraints, risks, and opportunities exist, because without a clear goal, decisions are scattered, inconsistent, and often misaligned with values and priorities. And once purpose is defined, the next step is gathering and analyzing information, observing facts, patterns, and variables, listening attentively to relevant perspectives, questioning assumptions, and seeking evidence that supports or contradicts potential choices. For decisions based on incomplete, biased, or superficial information are likely to fail, and the disciplined thinker integrates these insights, considering both immediate and long-term consequences and evaluating potential outcomes, probabilities, and risks with an objective mindset, recognizing that no choice is without uncertainty, yet some paths are more informed, strategic, and likely to succeed than others. And decision-making also requires emotional awareness, because stress, fear, urgency, or excitement can distort judgment, amplify perceived risks, or create impulsive tendencies. And by maintaining composure, regulating emotional responses, and pausing to assess the situation, the thinker allows reason to guide action rather than letting emotions dictate outcomes. And in addition, effective decision-making requires balancing analysis with timely action, because over-deliberation can lead to missed opportunities, paralysis, or delayed response, whereas hasty action without adequate assessment can lead to errors. And the mind trained in critical thinking navigates this tension by recognizing when enough information has been gathered to act responsibly, and when further observation, questioning, or reflection is necessary, creating a rhythm of deliberate, confident choice. And decision-making also benefits from considering multiple alternatives. generating options rather than fixating on a single solution. For creativity, flexibility, and adaptability increase the likelihood of finding effective, innovative, and sustainable outcomes, and the disciplined thinker evaluates trade-offs, weighing pros and cons, costs and benefits, short-term gains against long-term implications, and aligning choices with ethical principles, values, and strategic goals. And beyond the individual, decision-making often involves collaboration, negotiation, and communication, because complex problems rarely exist in isolation, and understanding the perspectives, priorities, and potential reactions of others enables more informed, cooperative, and mutually beneficial choices. And in difficult or high-stakes situations, decisions also require contingency planning, anticipating challenges, obstacles, or unintended consequences, and preparing alternative paths to ensure adaptability, resilience, and continued progress even when circumstances change unexpectedly. And reflective thinking is another critical aspect, reviewing past decisions, outcomes, and processes to identify lessons learned, refine judgment, and improve future choices. For the mind that evaluates experience systematically becomes more accurate, strategic, and confident over time. And decision-making is inseparable from accountability, recognizing that every choice carries responsibility, and that thoughtful, deliberate action requires ownership of both successes and failures. And by embracing this responsibility, the thinker strengthens integrity, discipline, and credibility. And the chapter also emphasizes the importance of decisiveness, the courage to commit to a choice once sufficient information and analysis have been gathered, because hesitation, doubt, or fear of error can prevent progress, and decisive action, even in uncertainty, is preferable to stagnation, as long as it is grounded in careful evaluation, reason, and ethical consideration. And in essence, effective decision-making is a dynamic integration of observation, questioning, listening, perspective, emotional regulation, reflection, analysis, and action, forming a continuous cycle of assessment, choice, implementation, and learning. And Chapter 8 reminds us that mastering this skill transforms challenges into opportunities, uncertainty into clarity, and complexity into actionable insight, enabling individuals to navigate life's most difficult situations with confidence, competence, and composure. And ultimately, the mind that combines critical thinking with deliberate, ethical, and reflective decision-making becomes a powerful instrument for success, resilience, and meaningful impact, turning the pressures of life into a structured process for thoughtful, intelligent, and effective action that consistently produces results aligned with values, goals, and reasoned judgment. Chapter 9 Problem solving is the practical application of critical thinking, and this chapter focuses on the systematic approach to addressing challenges with clarity, efficiency, and creativity. For in difficult situations, identifying the problem is often as important as finding the solution, and many people rush into action without fully understanding the issue, resulting in temporary fixes, unintended consequences, or repeated mistakes. Yet the disciplined problem solver approaches challenges with a structured mindset, beginning with defining the problem clearly, understanding its scope, and distinguishing between symptoms and root causes, because tackling the superficial problem may address immediate discomfort, but will not resolve underlying issues. And by analyzing the context, gathering accurate data, and observing patterns, one gains a comprehensive understanding that informs intelligent, strategic solutions. And problem solving also requires breaking complex challenges into manageable components, recognizing interdependencies, and prioritizing aspects of the problem based on urgency, impact, and feasibility, because attempting to solve everything at once can lead to overwhelm, confusion, or errors. And by organizing the problem logically, the thinker creates a roadmap that guides action step by step, increasing the likelihood of successful outcomes. And the chapter further emphasizes the importance of creative thinking in problem solving, for many difficult situations do not have obvious or conventional solutions, and generating alternative approaches, exploring novel ideas, and considering multiple scenarios allows the mind to identify options that are both innovative and practical. And creativity is enhanced when combined with observation, questioning, and perspective, as each skill contributes to a richer understanding of the problem, revealing hidden opportunities and previously unseen connections. And effective problem solving also relies on evaluation and judgment, assessing each potential solution based on criteria such as effectiveness, efficiency, risk, cost, and alignment with values and goals, because not all solutions are equal, and the ability to prioritize and select the best course of action is essential to achieving meaningful results. And decision-making within problem-solving requires both analysis and intuition, balancing logical assessment with experience, foresight, and contextual awareness. And the disciplined thinker avoids both impulsive action and over-deliberation, instead implementing solutions thoughtfully while remaining adaptable to changing circumstances. And another critical aspect is monitoring and feedback, implementing solutions with attention to outcomes, measuring results against expectations, and remaining open to adjustment or refinement, because no plan is perfect, and continuous evaluation ensures that solutions are effective, sustainable, and aligned with objectives. And problem solving also demands resilience, for challenges often involve setbacks, obstacles, and unexpected complications. And the mind trained in critical thinking approaches these difficulties with composure, learning from mistakes, recalibrating strategies, and maintaining focus on long-term objectives. And this resilience is strengthened through experience, reflection, and the development of coping strategies that allow the thinker to remain calm, persistent, and resourceful in the face of adversity. And in interpersonal or collaborative contexts, problem-solving requires communication, negotiation, and empathy, understanding the needs, priorities, and solutions that are effective, acceptable, and sustainable for all stakeholders. And the chapter highlights that complex problems rarely exist in isolation, and considering broader systems, relationships, and long-term impacts is essential to crafting solutions that do not create new issues or unintended consequences. And critical thinking supports this by promoting thorough analysis, careful evaluation, and the integration of multiple variables into coherent strategies. And the chapter also emphasizes the iterative nature of problem solving, where solutions are tested, refined, and improved continuously, with each attempt providing insight, learning, and data to inform subsequent actions, creating a cycle of improvement, adaptability, and growth. And problem solving is closely linked to decision-making, observation, questioning, perspective, and emotional regulation, because each of these skills contributes to understanding the challenge, evaluating options, anticipating risks, and executing solutions effectively. And Chapter 9 reminds us that mastery of problem solving transforms obstacles into opportunities, uncertainty into clarity, and complexity into actionable insight, enabling the thinker to approach difficulties with confidence, competence, and creativity. And ultimately, the mind that integrates critical thinking with structured problem solving becomes capable of navigating the most demanding situations with precision, foresight, and resilience, turning challenges into a process for thoughtful, deliberate, and effective action, generating results that are rational, sustainable, and aligned with both goals and values. And in embracing these principles, we understand that problem solving is not merely reactionary but strategic, systematic, and holistic, reflecting the culmination of observation, questioning, listening, perspective, decision-making, emotional awareness, and reflection, ensuring that every challenge is met with a mind prepared to analyze, adapt, innovate, and succeed. CHPR 10 reflection is a cornerstone of critical thinking, and this chapter emphasizes the profound importance of reviewing, evaluating, and learning from both successes and failures, for in difficult situations, Action without reflection risks repetition of errors, missed opportunities, and stagnation, and while many people focus exclusively on immediate outcomes, the disciplined thinker recognizes that understanding the processes, decisions, and underlying factors is essential to long-term growth and mastery, and reflection begins with deliberate review, examining what happened, why it happened, and how choices, actions, and circumstances interacted to produce results, because only through careful analysis can patterns, strengths, weaknesses, and areas for improvement be accurately identified. And this review is not limited to outcomes alone, but encompasses the quality of observation, listening, questioning, perspective-taking, emotional regulation, and decision-making applied throughout the process, allowing the thinker to assess both strategy and execution. And reflection also requires honesty and objectivity, acknowledging mistakes, limitations, and biases without defensiveness or self-deception, because only through truthful assessment can lessons be extracted, and by integrating these lessons, the mind strengthens its capacity for insight, judgment, and adaptability, and the reflective thinker also evaluates assumptions, considering whether initial beliefs, interpretations, or perspectives were accurate, complete, or influenced by bias. And by examining these foundational elements, one can recalibrate thinking patterns, improve analytical skills, and enhance decision-making in future challenges. And reflection further extends to emotional and interpersonal dimensions, assessing how emotions influenced thought and action, how communication affected outcomes, and how relationships, collaboration, or conflict management contributed to results. Because understanding these factors fosters emotional intelligence, relational insight, and the ability to let social dynamics more effectively. And the chapter emphasizes that reflection is not a passive act, but an active, structured process, involving questions such as, what worked well? What could have been done differently? What assumptions influenced my actions? And what lessons can I apply moving forward? And by consistently engaging with these inquiries, the thinker develops a habit of continuous improvement, turning every experience into a source of learning, growth, and refinement. And reflection also supports strategic foresight, because by analyzing past decisions, evaluating outcomes, and recognizing patterns over time, the mind anticipates challenges, identifies recurring obstacles, and prepares more effective strategies, reducing the likelihood of repeated mistakes and increasing confidence in handling future situations. And this iterative cycle of action, reflection, and adaptation strengthens resilience, adaptability, and cognitive agility, essential traits for navigating uncertainty, complexity, and high-pressure environments. And reflective practice also promotes humility, for it reminds the thinker that no one possesses perfect knowledge or infallible judgment, and that every situation presents opportunities for learning, correction, and refinement. And by embracing this mindset, the individual cultivates a growth-oriented, self-aware, and intellectually disciplined approach to life, where every challenge, mistake, or unexpected outcome becomes an opportunity to expand understanding and capability. And in professional, academic, or personal contexts, reflection enhances problem-solving, decision-making, and innovation, because the mind that reviews experiences systematically is better equipped to recognize successful strategies, identify pitfalls, and adapt approaches creatively, turning lessons learned into practical, actionable insight. And the chapter also highlights that reflection integrates with all other critical thinking skills, reinforcing observation, listening, questioning, perspective-taking, emotional regulation, and decision-making, because evaluating each element of thought and action reveals how these skills interact, where improvements can be made, and how they can be applied more effectively in future scenarios. And reflective thinking encourages mindfulness, metacognition, and deliberate practice, creating a feedback loop that continuously strengthens cognitive, emotional, and strategic capabilities, and ultimately Chapter 10 demonstrates that reflection is not an optional add-on but a necessary, ongoing component of critical thinking, transforming experience into knowledge, mistakes into lessons, challenges into opportunities, and action into wisdom. And the mind that reflects consistently becomes a more accurate, adaptable, resilient, and insightful problem solver, decision maker, and thinker, capable of navigating complex, uncertain, and high-stakes situations with clarity, composure, and effectiveness. And by embedding reflection into daily practice, the thinker ensures that every action contributes not only to immediate goals, but also to long-term mastery, continuous improvement, and the development of the intellectual, emotional, and strategic faculties necessary to thrive in any difficult situation, turning life itself into a laboratory for deliberate, thoughtful, and intelligent growth. And ultimately, the power of reflection lies in its ability to create awareness, reinforce learning, and guide future behavior, ensuring that critical thinking is not just a reactive tool but a proactive, evolving, and continuously improving practice that shapes every choice, response, and action with insight, precision, and purpose. See Chapter 11. Adaptability is a cornerstone of effective critical thinking, and this chapter explores the vital importance of remaining flexible, responsive, and resilient in the face of change, uncertainty, and unexpected challenges, because in difficult situations, rigid thinking or attachment to a single strategy can lead to frustration, error, and missed opportunities, whereas a mind trained in adaptability navigates complexity with composure, creativity, and strategic insight. And adaptability begins with awareness, noticing when circumstances shift, new information emerges, or previous assumptions are challenged, because the first step in responding effectively is recognizing that change has occurred and understanding its implications, and this requires observation, active listening, questioning, and reflection, integrating all previous critical thinking skills to evaluate the situation accurately. For a flexible thinker does not react impulsively, but assesses how the new information affects goals, priorities, and strategies. And adaptability also involves emotional regulation, because change can trigger stress, anxiety, fear, or resistance, and without awareness and control, these emotional responses can distort judgment, inhibit problem solving, and undermine decision-making. Yet the disciplined thinker uses emotional intelligence to remain calm, composed, and focused, transforming uncertainty from a threat into an opportunity for insight and innovation. And this emotional resilience strengthens perseverance, allowing the thinker to navigate setbacks, obstacles, or sudden shifts with patience and persistence. And adaptability also requires creativity, as novel situations often demand unconventional solutions, flexible strategies, and the ability to combine knowledge, experience, and intuition in new ways. And by considering multiple perspectives, exploring alternative approaches, and imagining potential scenarios, the adaptable thinker generates options that are both practical and innovative, enhancing the likelihood of successful outcomes. And this skill is further enhanced by reflection and learning, because by reviewing past experiences, evaluating what strategies succeeded or failed, and identifying patterns of effective adaptation, the thinker develops a repository of knowledge and insight to draw upon in future challenges, building a mental toolkit for responding quickly and intelligently to the unexpected. And adaptability is closely linked with perspective, as the ability to see situations from multiple angles, recognize broader implications, and anticipate consequences allows for more informed, strategic, and flexible responses. And the chapter emphasizes that adaptability is not about indecision or lack of commitment, but about informed flexibility, knowing when to stay the course, when to adjust, and when to pivot entirely. And this requires critical judgment, careful evaluation of evidence, and integration of both short-term needs and long-term goals. And in collaborative or interpersonal contexts, adaptability enhances communication, negotiation, and problem-solving, because flexible thinkers are better able to understand the priorities constraints, and perspectives of others, adjust strategies to fit evolving group dynamics, and foster cooperative, mutually beneficial outcomes. And in high-pressure or complex situations, adaptability enables rapid assessment, recalibration, and execution, preventing stagnation, reducing errors, and maximizing effectiveness. And the chapter also highlights the role of mindset in adaptability, cultivating openness, curiosity, and a willingness to learn, because individuals who embrace change as a natural and valuable part of life are better equipped to respond constructively rather than resist or fear the unknown. And this growth-oriented mindset fosters resilience, innovation, and continuous improvement, as the thinker sees challenges as opportunities to acquire knowledge, refine skills, and enhance strategic thinking. And adaptability also intersects with problem-solving, decision-making, and creativity, because flexible thinking allows the integration of diverse insights, consideration of multiple alternatives, and rapid evaluation of outcomes, ensuring that choices are rational, practical, and responsive to evolving conditions. And by practicing adaptability consistently, the thinker builds confidence, mental agility, and strategic foresight, developing the ability to anticipate change, respond proactively, and maintain clarity under pressure. And Chapter 11 reminds us that adaptability is not a passive reaction, but an active, deliberate practice, requiring observation, reflection, emotional regulation, creativity, perspective, and strategic evaluation. And by cultivating this skill, the mind transforms uncertainty into clarity, obstacles into opportunities, and change into a catalyst for growth, enabling individuals to navigate life's most challenging situations with resilience, intelligence, and composure. And ultimately, the power of adaptability lies in its ability to integrate knowledge, experience, insight, and flexibility into deliberate, thoughtful action, ensuring that critical thinking remains effective, relevant, and responsive in every situation, allowing the thinker to act decisively, strategically, and creatively, even in the face of unexpected challenges, shifting circumstances, or high-pressure environments. And by embracing adaptability, we create a mind capable of thriving amidst complexity, uncertainty, and difficulty, turning every challenge into an opportunity for insight, growth, and intelligent, effective action. Chapter 12 focus is an essential pillar of critical thinking, and this chapter emphasizes the power of sustained attention and concentration in navigating difficult situations, because in complex or high-pressure environments, distractions, noise, and competing priorities can easily fragment thought, distort judgment, and reduce effectiveness. Yet the disciplined thinker understands that the ability to direct mental energy deliberately toward relevant information, analysis, and action is what separates reactive, scattered responses from thoughtful, strategic outcomes. And focus begins with clarity of purpose, identifying the goals, priorities, and desired outcomes in any situation, because without a clear target, the mind wanders, attention is divided, and decision-making becomes inconsistent or haphazard. And once purpose is established, focus requires the ability to filter information, distinguishing between what is important, relevant, and actionable, and what is incidental, misleading, or distracting. And this filtering process is strengthened through observation, listening, questioning, and perspective, allowing the thinker to attend to meaningful details while ignoring noise. And focus also demands emotional regulation, because stress, anxiety, frustration, or overexcitement can scatter attention, impair memory, and interfere with reasoning. Yet a mind trained in emotional awareness maintains composure, sustaining attention even under pressure. And this calm, deliberate concentration enhances both analytical and creative thinking, enabling the individual to evaluate information, consider alternatives, and anticipate consequences with accuracy, precision, and depth. And the chapter further emphasizes the importance of mental discipline, creating habits and routines that protect attention, such as minimizing distractions, prioritizing tasks, setting clear boundaries, and practicing mindfulness. because focus is not merely a spontaneous ability, but a skill cultivated through intentional effort and consistent practice. And sustained attention allows the thinker to process complex information fully, integrate multiple variables, and consider long-term implications, reducing errors, oversights, and impulsive decisions. And focus also interacts with reflection and adaptability, because maintaining attention on key issues enables the mind to recognize patterns, detect deviations, and adjust strategies intelligently as situations evolve. For the thinker who can sustain concentration while observing, questioning, and reflecting is uniquely equipped to respond effectively in dynamic, uncertain, or high-stakes environments. And in addition, focus enhances problem-solving and decision-making, because the ability to attend to critical details, evaluate evidence, and deliberate systematically ensures that solutions are well-informed, rational, and aligned with objectives, while minimizing the influence of irrelevant factors, bias, or emotional distortion. And the chapter also explores the role of selective attention in prioritization, recognizing that not all information or tasks deserve equal mental resources, and the skilled thinker directs focus where it has the greatest impact, balancing immediate needs with long-term goals, and allocating mental energy strategically. And focus is strengthened by mindfulness and metacognitive awareness, because the mind that notices when attention drifts can redirect it deliberately, sustaining concentration and enhancing the quality of thought. And this self-monitoring also supports resilience, as the thinker maintains composure and clarity even under stress, distractions, or competing demands. And the chapter highlights that focus is not rigid or obsessive, but flexible and purposeful, allowing for attention to shift strategically when priorities change, new information emerges, or unexpected challenges arise, ensuring that the thinker remains both responsive and deliberate. And sustained focus also improves learning, retention, and insight, because the mind that engages deeply with information is more likely to identify patterns, integrate knowledge, and generate creative, effective solutions. And this depth of engagement enhances both personal growth and professional performance. And in interpersonal contexts, focus supports active listening, empathy, and effective communication, because directing attention fully to the speaker, situation, or problem allows for accurate understanding, thoughtful response, and meaningful collaboration. And the disciplined thinker uses focus to integrate observation, listening, questioning, perspective, decision-making, adaptability, and reflection into a coherent process, maximizing cognitive efficiency and effectiveness. And ultimately, Chapter 12 demonstrates that focus is not merely a tool for attention, but a comprehensive mental skill that underpins clarity, insight, and effective action. And by cultivating sustained, deliberate concentration, the thinker navigates complexity, uncertainty, and high-pressure situations with composure, precision, and strategic intelligence, transforming distraction into clarity, chaos into order, and difficulty into an opportunity for deliberate, thoughtful, and intelligent action. And by embedding focus into every aspect of thought and behavior, we ensure that critical thinking is consistently applied, deliberate, and capable of producing outcomes that are rational, effective, and aligned with both goals and values, creating a mind that is sharp, resilient, and prepared to respond intelligently to any challenge. Chapter 13 Persistence is an essential element of critical thinking and problem-solving, and this chapter highlights the profound importance of maintaining determination, resilience, and consistent effort in the face of obstacles, setbacks, and challenges. For in difficult situations, even the most intelligent analysis, careful observation, and strategic planning can be undermined if the individual gives up prematurely. Yet the disciplined thinker understands that success, insight, and meaningful outcomes are rarely achieved without sustained commitment and the willingness to endure difficulty while continuing to act thoughtfully. And persistence begins with mindset, cultivating a growth oriented perspective that views challenges as opportunities to learn, adapt, and improve rather than insurmountable barriers, because individuals who embrace setbacks as part of the process are better equipped to analyze failures objectively, extract lessons, and adjust strategies for future attempts. And this mindset also strengthens emotional resilience, as persistence requires managing frustration, disappointment, and fatigue while maintaining focus, composure, and motivation. And the chapter emphasizes that persistence is not blind stubbornness, but informed, deliberate, and adaptive effort, guided by observation, listening, questioning, reflection, and evaluation, so that repeated actions are purposeful, intelligent, and aligned with goals. And in practical terms, persistence involves setting clear objectives, breaking challenges into manageable steps, and developing consistent routines that ensure progress even when motivation fluctuates, because momentum builds with incremental, sustained action, allowing the thinker to overcome resistance, complexity, or temporary obstacles. And persistence is reinforced by reflection, as reviewing past experiences, successes, and failures provides insight into effective strategies, highlights patterns, and identifies areas for improvement, ensuring that continued effort is smarter and more efficient, rather than repetitive and unproductive. And the chapter also underscores the interplay between persistence and adaptability, because rigid adherence to a failing strategy can waste time and resources, whereas persistent individuals combine determination with flexibility, adjusting approaches, methods, or perspectives while maintaining commitment to the ultimate goal. And this balance between steadfastness and flexibility is what enables long-term success in complex, uncertain, or high-pressure situations. And persistence is closely linked to problem-solving and decision-making, because repeated thoughtful action, informed by observation, analysis, and reflection, allows challenges to be addressed systematically, obstacles to be surmounted, and solutions to be refined, creating a cycle of continuous improvement and growth. And the disciplined thinker develops strategies to sustain energy, attention, and focus, recognizing the importance of mental, emotional, and physical well-being in maintaining the endurance necessary for prolonged effort. And persistence also strengthens confidence, as the repeated practice of overcoming obstacles, learning from mistakes, and achieving incremental progress reinforces belief in one's abilities and capacity to handle future challenges. And in collaborative or interpersonal contexts, persistence enhances reliability, credibility, and influence, because individuals who consistently act with determination, responsibility, and thoughtful effort gain trust, respect, and the ability to mobilize support, negotiate effectively, and inspire others to overcome shared difficulties. And the chapter further explores the connection between persistence and long-term vision, emphasizing that immediate results may be limited or delayed, but sustained effort, guided by strategic thinking, reflection, and evaluation, gradually produces meaningful, lasting outcomes. And this perspective encourages patience, diligence, and an understanding that mastery, insight, and achievement are processes rather than instantaneous events. And persistence is strengthened through planning, goal setting, and prioritization, as clearly defined objectives and structured pathways provide direction, motivation, and measurable markers of progress, reducing the likelihood of discouragement or misdirected effort. And the chapter highlights that persistence also nurtures self-discipline, accountability, and ethical responsibility, because maintaining consistent effort requires regulating impulses, committing to deliberate practice, and aligning actions with values and principles, ensuring that perseverance is applied thoughtfully and constructively rather than recklessly or opportunistically. And ultimately, Chapter 13 demonstrates that persistence transforms obstacles into opportunities, setbacks into lessons, and challenges into catalysts for growth, enabling the thinker to navigate difficulty with resilience, composure, and strategic intelligence. And by cultivating this quality, Individuals combine determination with critical thinking skills such as observation, listening, questioning, reflection, adaptability, focus, and decision-making, creating a mind capable of sustained, deliberate, and effective action, producing outcomes that are rational, meaningful, and aligned with goals and values. And the power of persistence lies in its ability to convert intention into achievement, effort into mastery, and challenge into success, ensuring that the disciplined thinker remains engaged, resourceful, and capable of thriving in even the most demanding situations while continuously learning, adapting, and advancing toward meaningful results. Chapter 14 Strategic Thinking is a fundamental skill in critical thinking, and this chapter explores the importance of planning, foresight, and intelligent coordination of actions in navigating complex or difficult situations, because in high-pressure circumstances, even the most capable thinkers can falter if they act without a clear plan, fail to anticipate consequences, or overlook the interconnectedness of variables. Yet the disciplined strategist understands that every decision, observation, and action should be aligned with long-term goals, priorities, and values, and strategic thinking begins with clarity of objectives, defining precisely what one aims to achieve, why it matters, and what constraints, opportunities, and resources are available, because without a clear vision, actions can become reactive, inconsistent, or misaligned, and once goals are defined, strategic thinkers analyze the broader context, considering patterns, relationships, risks, and potential outcomes, evaluating both internal and external factors that may influence success, and by integrating observation, listening, questioning, reflection, and perspective, they develop a comprehensive understanding of the situation, allowing for informed, deliberate, and forward-looking decisions. And strategic thinking also involves prioritization, identifying which actions, resources, or problems deserve immediate attention, and which can be deferred, delegated, or approached differently, because effective allocation of time, energy, and effort maximizes impact, reduces wasted effort, and ensures that critical factors are addressed first. And this prioritization is enhanced by focus, discipline, and emotional regulation, because maintaining attention on high-value activities and resisting distraction or impulsive action is essential for achieving meaningful outcomes. And the chapter emphasizes the role of scenario planning and contingency analysis, anticipating potential obstacles, unintended consequences, and changing circumstances, and preparing alternative strategies to adapt effectively, because no plan is perfect, and the ability to pivot intelligently is a hallmark of strategic thinking, and adaptability complements foresight by enabling the thinker to respond to new information, evolving conditions, or unforeseen challenges without losing sight of overarching objectives. And strategic thinking also requires the integration of creative problem solving, generating innovative approaches, evaluating multiple options, and synthesizing diverse insights to develop solutions that are both effective and sustainable, because complex situations rarely have straightforward answers, and the ability to combine logic, intuition, and ingenuity produces superior outcomes. And the chapter further highlights the importance of reflection and learning in strategic thinking, reviewing past decisions, successes, failures, and patterns to inform future actions, refine approaches, and anticipate potential risks more accurately, because a reflective mind continually enhances its capacity for foresight, judgment, and adaptability. And strategic thinking is closely linked to decision-making, because each step, assessment, and action requires deliberate choice, weighing alternatives, risks, and benefits to select the most effective course. And persistence plays a role as well, because complex strategies often require sustained effort, follow-through, and patience to achieve long-term goals, and the thinker must maintain determination while adjusting tactics intelligently. And in collaborative contexts, strategic thinking enhances communication, negotiation, and coordination, understanding the perspectives, priorities, and constraints of others to ensure that collective action is coherent, efficient, and aligned with shared objectives. And this awareness fosters cooperation, minimizes conflict, and strengthens the likelihood of successful outcomes. And strategic thinking also benefits from continuous monitoring and feedback, tracking progress, evaluating results, and making incremental adjustments to remain aligned with objectives and respond effectively to dynamic conditions, because flexibility and attentiveness are critical for maintaining effectiveness over time. And the chapter emphasizes that strategy is not rigid or deterministic, but a dynamic, iterative process combining planning, execution, evaluation, and adjustment, and the mind that practices strategic thinking integrates knowledge, insight, foresight, reflection, and adaptability into coherent action, enabling intelligent navigation through uncertainty, complexity, and high-pressure environments. And by aligning immediate actions with long-term vision, the thinker ensures that decisions are rational, purposeful, and impactful, producing outcomes that are both efficient and meaningful. And ultimately, Chapter 14 illustrates that strategic thinking transforms complexity into clarity, uncertainty into informed action, and challenge into opportunity, equipping the thinker to approach life's most demanding situations with foresight, composure, and intelligence. And by cultivating this skill alongside observation, listening, questioning, perspective, reflection, adaptability, focus, decision-making, problem-solving, and persistence, individuals create a mind capable of deliberate, insightful, and effective action, turning obstacles into opportunities, choices into progress, and challenges into pathways for growth, mastery, and meaningful achievement, ensuring that critical thinking is applied not just reactively, but strategically, intentionally, and with the foresight necessary to succeed in even the most difficult circumstances. CHDR 15 Mastery is the culmination of all the critical thinking skills explored throughout this book, and this chapter emphasizes the integration of observation, listening, questioning, perspective, decision-making, problem-solving, reflection, adaptability, focus, persistence, and strategic thinking into a coherent, disciplined, and highly effective approach to navigating life's most complex and challenging situations. Because while each skill individually enhances understanding and action, true mastery arises from the deliberate combination and application of all these abilities in a way that produces consistent, rational, and impactful results. And mastery begins with self-awareness, the deep understanding of one's cognitive processes, biases, strengths, and limitations, because only by knowing how one thinks, reacts, and perceives can the thinker deliberately guide attention, reasoning, and behavior toward optimal outcomes. And this self-awareness is reinforced through reflection, as examining past experiences, evaluating decisions, and learning from both successes and failures allows the mind to refine strategies, anticipate challenges, and develop a resilient, adaptable approach. And mastery also requires emotional intelligence, the ability to regulate emotions, maintain composure under pressure, and respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, because high-pressure situations often trigger stress, fear, or frustration that can distort judgment if unchecked. Yet the disciplined thinker integrates emotional awareness with analytical reasoning to make calm, informed, and effective choices. And this emotional regulation enhances persistence, enabling the individual to sustain effort, overcome setbacks, and continue pursuing objectives even in the face of repeated obstacles. And mastery also entails focus, the ability to direct mental energy deliberately toward relevant information, analysis, and action, filtering distractions, prioritizing essential factors, and maintaining sustained attention. Because clarity of thought and precision of action are only possible when cognitive resources are concentrated purposefully, and focus is strengthened through mindfulness, metacognition, and disciplined routines that ensure attention is applied effectively and consistently. And critical thinking skills such as observation, listening, and questioning converge in mastery to provide a deep accurate understanding of situations, allowing the thinker to detect patterns, inconsistencies, and subtle cues, gather and evaluate evidence thoroughly, and ask the right questions that illuminate hidden factors, assumptions, and opportunities, and perspective. Taking plays a central role, expanding the mind's view beyond immediate appearances, incorporating multiple angles, historical context, potential consequences, and the viewpoints of others, because the ability to integrate diverse insights and anticipate ripple effects transforms complex, ambiguous situations into comprehensible and manageable challenges, and decision-making and problem-solving are refined in mastery, because choices are not only informed and rational, but also strategically aligned with goals, values, and long-term objectives, and solutions are implemented with precision, creativity, and adaptability, integrating foresight, contingency planning, and iterative evaluations and maximize effectiveness, while minimizing errors or unintended consequences, and strategic thinking connects all these skills, ensuring that actions are coordinated, purposeful, and oriented toward achieving meaningful outcomes, while reflection and continuous learning create a feedback loop that perpetually improves judgment, insight, and effectiveness. And mastery is further distinguished by adaptability, the ability to respond intelligently to unexpected changes, new information, and evolving circumstances, adjusting strategies without losing sight of goals, and by combining persistence with flexibility, the thinker navigates uncertainty with resilience, resourcefulness, and confidence, transforming obstacles into opportunities and challenges into learning experiences. And the chapter emphasizes that mastery is not a static achievement, but a continuous process, a lifelong practice of integrating skills, refining approaches, and cultivating mental, emotional, and strategic capacities, because the mind that stops growing or adapting risks complacency, error, and inefficiency. And mastery also involves ethical awareness and responsibility, ensuring that decisions, actions, and strategies are aligned with principles, values, and the broader impact on others and the environment, because intelligence alone without integrity can lead to harm or misdirection. And ultimately, Chapter 15 demonstrates that mastery is the deliberate synthesis of observation, listening, questioning, perspective, decision-making, problem-solving, reflection, adaptability, focus, persistence, and strategic thinking, producing a mind capable of navigating complexity, uncertainty, and high-pressure situations with clarity, composure, and intelligence. And by cultivating these skills collectively, the thinker achieves not only effective outcomes, but also continuous growth, resilience, and insight, turning challenges into opportunities, uncertainty into understanding, and complexity into actionable knowledge. And in embracing mastery, the individual develops a disciplined, reflective, and strategically capable mind that applies critical thinking consistently and effectively in every aspect of life, ensuring that every decision, action, and response is deliberate, informed, and aligned with goals, values, and reasoned judgment. And by committing to this integrated practice, one transforms potential into capability, obstacles into opportunities, and challenges into pathways for wisdom, competence, and meaningful achievement, concluding the journey of critical thinking with a mind fully equipped to think clearly, act strategically, and thrive in any situation.